Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start, may I take this time to remind everyone of our house rules and reminders for today's event. To our participants, kindly mute your microphone when not speaking to avoid disruptive noise. To mute your microphone, select the microphone icon at the bottom left corner of the Zoom call. When the icon has a red slash through it, it is muted. During the Q&A, please use the chat function. Kindly type your questions briefly and clearly. Questions given during the registration have been collated and may be discussed later. Participants are requested to virtually remain in the webinar until the end of the program. We'd also like to remind you that the webinar will be recorded. Participants are not allowed to do so. If you have any concerns or any inquiry, you may direct them to the technical assistance of the webinar via private chat. Lastly, please continue to observe proper decorum throughout the session. The organizers, Friedrich Ebert Stiftung Philippines, Tax Asia, and Amador Research Services strive to ensure a high level of security for your personal data. The organizers will comply with the Philippines Data Privacy Act governing data that was gathered as part of the registration process during this event and the evaluation. We'll be starting our program in a bit. Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, guests, and of course to all our participants who are joining us in this wonderful and exciting day. Welcome to the fourth and final installment of the EconSecurity Talks webinar series. It is a pleasure to see all of you here virtually. My name is Diane Carrera. I'm Miss Philippines Earth Air 2014 and TV host and news anchor from PTV, and I will serve as your moderator for today's program. Well, over the last 2 decades, the internet, along with rampantly growing and developing technological innovations, have propelled the digital economy to grow exponentially. The digital economy refers to a broad range of economic activities that use digitized information and knowledge as critical factors of production. The internet, cloud computing, fintech, big data, and other new digital technologies that are used to collect, store, analyze, and share information digitally and transform social interactions are categorized under this sector. The digitization of the economy has long been recognized for the various benefits, opportunities, and efficiencies it creates. Its significance has been further appreciated due to the COVID-19 pandemic, where people all around the world depend on various digital platforms to receive goods and services. However, despite its positive contributions, there are still issues on human rights and security that need to be addressed. Such matters include misinformation and disinformation prevalent in social media platforms, exploitation and misuse of personal data, and other cybercrimes. The Philippines is known as the world's social media capital. Nonetheless, it lags behind its regional counterparts in growing its digital economy. Some of the challenges the country faces include the lack of infrastructure to support digitization, lack of access to financial resources, limited digital literacy, and lack of a skilled workforce. The digital sector is a modern necessity for securing socio-economic progress and inclusive growth. Thus, the country must equip itself with various policies, instruments, and mechanisms that will allow it to make use of the benefits and opportunities it brings. Ladies and gentlemen, today we intend to explore, analyze, and generate strategies to advance the sector and to foster dialogue with relevant stakeholders in the Philippines. In connection to this, we count on the insights of our dear speakers and their expertise regarding this matter. And now to begin, we shall have the opening remarks given by Mr. Mirko Gunter. Mr. Gunter is currently the head of the Asia Pacific Department of Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, or FES. He has held various team positions in FES. He was managing director and resident representative of the FES Office for Regional Cooperation in Asia and the country director and resident representative of FES at its Kabul office in Afghanistan. During this time, he was also the coordinator of the FES Asia Peace and Security Project for Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, and Central Asia. Additionally, Mr. Gunter held various leadership positions in the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe Field Missions, seconded by the German Foreign Office and the Center for International Peace Operations. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Freie Universität Berlin, a Master of Letters in Middle East and Central Asian Security Studies from the University of St. Andrews School of International Relations, and a Master's in Public Administration from Harvard University John F. Kennedy School of Government. Ladies and gentlemen, for the opening remarks, please give your virtual applause. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mirko Gunter.
So thank you so much, Diane, and thank you for your very kind and generous introduction. A very good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you to our webinar and EconSecurity Talk titled Accelerating the Digital Economy in the Philippines, Policies, Trends, and Challenges. I'm very excited to be joining you from Manila today, where I'm currently spending a full week with our FAS colleagues, partners, and friends with a busy schedule focusing on the many important topics our FAS Philippines office is driving forward. This is not my first visit to the Philippines, nor is it my first visit to Manila, quite the opposite. As Diane already alluded to, I was previously heading the FAS Asia Regional Office in Singapore. So I have been to the Philippines, different places in the Philippines on a number of occasions, and I'm very, very excited to be back in Manila today. Our office in the Philippines, as you may know, is the oldest office of FAS in Asia, and we are very proud to be marking our 60th anniversary in the Philippines in a few years' time. I have the great pleasure to acknowledge at the outset our distinguished guest speakers, Undersecretary Jocelle Batapa-Sigue from the Department of Information and Communications Technology, Ms. Clarisse Carlos from the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, and Mr. Detros from the Tech for Good Institute. A very warm welcome to all of you. We are greatly honored to have you, and we are greatly looking forward to your contribution to this day's discussion. I would also like to express our sincere appreciation to the team and our partners at the Foundation for the National Interest and retired Vice Admiral Jose Luis Alano for the excellent cooperation we have enjoyed for many years and for organizing this timely webinar. It is the fourth edition, as Diane already alluded to, in our Economic Security Talk series this year, and I'm really, really glad to see that many attendees have joined us from all across the Philippines. The fourth industrial revolution, and just to set the stage a little for today's discussion, has led obviously to a new wave and a new age of the digital economy. The pace in which the digital economy has shaped our societies, most recently during the pandemic, has been revolutionary. And it is indeed a complex undertaking to navigate its economic impact, but also the political and social implications when it comes to redefining the very nature of work, the way we live, play, and work, and the very value of our labor force. As the world's social media capital, the Philippines is, of course, no stranger to the integration of digital innovations into the economy and into everyday life. Our confined spaces previously were mostly related to social networking when it comes to the digital economy, but nowadays we are obviously talking an exponential growth of the digital economy in terms of inclusion and integration in the economic and security sectors. The digital economy is therefore not new to us anymore, quite the opposite. Most of us, particularly in the younger generation, are nowadays digital natives. In Southeast Asia, the internet penetration is at 75% of the population, and 80% are digital consumers. In the highly digitalized world that we live in, digitalization helps us transcend borders, and we have seen the digital economy evolve into a dynamic system that keeps up with our growing everyday demand. In the Philippines, in particular, the digital economy was valued at around 1.87 trillion pesos last year and at 1.73 trillion pesos this year. And according to the Philippine Statistic Authority, the digital economy contributed 9.6% to the country's overall economy, or GDP, in 2021, meaning quite an exceptionally large share of the GDP. Now that the restrictions related to the COVID pandemic have been eased in most countries, and we are slowly returning to the life we knew before, the digital economy obviously will no doubt continue to contribute to the national economic growth of the Philippines in a meaningful way, not least with a view to the jobs that are being created in and around the digital and tech sectors, and also the positive contributions of greater connectivity and the ease of doing business. But at the same time, as Diana has already mentioned, and beyond the important question of economic recovery and the many opportunities that undoubtedly come with digitalization, it is imperative that we also look into the social dimension and that we look into security and human rights issues as well. The digital economy has changed the landscape for work and labor quite significantly. Technology adoption and innovation is driving automation and thereby major changes in our job markets and economic development models. They also drive a reallocation of labor into tasks that will, in the future, require more critical thinking, creativity, decision-making, and social skills. And of course, innovations linked to the ever-growing use of AI, artificial intelligence, can be highly disruptive for labor and exacerbate existing socioeconomic inequalities. As we navigate that very complex space and the acceleration of the digital economy in the Philippines and elsewhere, we must ensure that a particular emphasis in our conversation and in our policies is being placed on social justice. How do we ensure equitable access to different sectors, especially for women and for marginalized groups in our society? How can digitalization help empower those in the informal economy? And how can we continue to provide social protection to workers who rely on the gig and platform economy and are being affected by digital transformation, both professionally, but also very personally when it comes to the changing nature and future of work? Those are some of the questions we want to tackle today. And of course, we should not forget about other challenges, including cybersecurity, data and privacy protection, and the resilience to supply chain disruption, particularly in the context of the dynamically changing geopolitical and geoeconomic landscape across the Asia-Pacific and indeed globally at this moment. And of course, last but not least, we must not forget about the very important question of sustainable resource management and environmental protection either. As a critical driving force, the digital economy can impact delivery of services and it can impact national security in our countries. And it is therefore important that we jointly, both public and private institutions, continue to develop policies and mechanisms that will maximize the opportunities and benefits of the digital economy, but also regulate digital platforms, particularly when it comes to social media, in an ethically responsible manner, so as to promote social justice, ensure equal access, and create indeed a safe and respectful digital environment for everyone. Today, we have the opportunity to look into those challenges and spell out a way forward for the Philippines and its national development plan with very esteemed guest speakers from the government and from civil society. And we are indeed greatly looking forward to hearing your policy recommendations, to learn from your input, and to have a meaningful debate in a digital space that is sustainable, safe, and inclusive. Thank you for your attention. Thank you to all of our speakers, our audience, and particularly, again, our partners at FNI, Facts Asia, and Amador Research Services. We truly appreciate your partnership, and I look forward now to an insightful and engaging discussion and handing over the virtual mic back to Diane, who will be moderating our session today. Thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to our debate.
And we thank you as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Mirko Gunter. Well, Mr. Gunter mentioned about important questions about the digital economy, and those questions we look forward to be answered today to the insights of our dear speakers. So, friends, let us not prolong anymore the excitement to learn today as I introduce to you our first speaker for today's discussion. We have Undersecretary Jocelle E. Batapa-Sigue. She is the Undersecretary for Information and Communications Technology, or ICT, Industry Development at the Philippine Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, and is concurrently the co-founder and member of the Board of Directors of the National ICT Confederation of the Philippines, or NICP. She was awarded the Philippine Individual Contributor of the Year in 2015, given by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce and Industry in the Philippines. In 2012, she was an Eisenhower Fellow of the Philippines and was recognized as one of the Asia 21 top 10 young leaders of the Philippines in 2009. Yusek holds a Juris Doctor degree from the University of St. La Salle, Bacolod, and a Bachelor of Arts major in Political Science from the University of Negros Occidental, Recoletos. Friends joining us via a video presentation to share her insights. Please welcome Undersecretary Jocelle E. Batapa-Sigue.
A digitally empowered morning to everyone. It is my honor and privilege to be part of this activity this morning. I would like to extend my sincerest thanks to the Foundation for the National Interest for inviting me to speak about accelerating the digital economy in the Philippines from the standpoint of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or the DICT. To guide me in this talk, let me just share my screen. I hope that you are viewing my screen currently. I would like to set the context that the Philippines aims to be a prosperous middle-class society free of poverty by 2040. This collective long-term vision of the Filipinos for the nation is enshrined in Ambition Natin 2040. The agenda of my talk shows the categories of thrusts that the Department of Information and Communications Technology is committed to support as part of this vision. First is our commitment and plans for a digital economy. Second is leveraging cooperation, involvement, and partnerships, especially with the private sector. Policies and regulations for a digital economy. Tackling cyber issues, risks, and challenges. And the 3 pillars of action. For commitments and plans for a digital economy, I'd like to emphasize at the outset that the Department of Information and Communications Technology is aiming to see a Philippines that is digitally empowered. This, in fact, is our slogan, our battle cry, when we again placed our country as part of the list of countries vying for a seat in the 48th Nation ITU Council, or the International Telecommunications Union Council, which is the highest policy-making body of the United Nations insofar as ICTs and telecommunications are concerned. And I am proud to share with everyone that we, again, as a country, won a seat in the ITU Council in the next 4 years. And so, moving forward, I'd like to share with everyone some key words when we talk about digital economy. As per the Philippine Statistics Authority and World Bank project, digital economy refers to a broad band or a broad range of activities which include the use of knowledge and information as factors in production, information networks as platforms for action, and how the ICT sector spurs economic growth. It is composed of digital transactions covering digital enabling infrastructure, e-commerce, and lastly, digital media and digital content. In a press release by the PSA on October of 2022, it was reported that the 2021 digital economy amounted to 1.87 trillion pesos, contributing 9.6% of the country's or to the country's gross domestic product or GDP. This represents an increase of 7.8% from 1.73 trillion pesos recorded in 2020. The following graph shows the gross value added of the digital economy by subcomponent at the current prices. From 2018 to 2021 levels in millions of pesos. As you can see, there is really a big importance in so far as moving the Philippines towards embracing the digital economy. with so many factors in place. We need to implement a lot of systems, a lot of policies in order to achieve this goal. Pursuant to the State of the Nation address by President Marcos on July 25, 2022, several commitments and plans were declared, and this includes to implement a sound fiscal management, to institute tax administration reforms for the Philippines to become an investment destination, to facilitate economic growth outside of Metro Manila, such that our growth as a country is more inclusive, especially as it redounds to the welfare of the countryside and not just the metropolis. And finally, to promote streamlined processes through ICT. Let me just mention that as part of my portfolio, as Undersecretary for ICT Industry Development, our direction is really to identify regional growth areas in terms of digital jobs, digital investments, and digitally enabled opportunities for every Filipino, regardless of which province they are residing in. Number 2 component is leveraging cooperation, involvement, and partnerships. And once again, I would like to emphasize that as your Undersecretary for ICT Industry Development, we really support and promote as well as observe very strong collaboration with different stakeholders from the academe, government agencies, our industry partners, our local government stakeholders, because we believe that an ICT-centric system or ecosystem can only thrive and can only be sustainable when everyone understands their role and all of us join hands together to create more impact than we can ever do working individually. And so, under the second agenda, the DICT has been involved in the following: the signing of regional trade agreements such as RCEP, as well as bilateral economic cooperation and engagements for regional cooperation, the launching of technology for education, employment, entrepreneurs, and economic development, or what we call as Tech for Ed centers, and our community involvement and different trainings, as well as the issuance of the revised Build, Operate, Transfer, or BOT laws, implementing rules and regulations, or IRR, for public-private partnerships. We have a lot on our plate today, having been pushed in the forefront of digitalization. We have a lot of agreements with different organizations and institutions around building the digital competence of our workforce, around ensuring that we have support, especially on the ground, for startups, for ICT enterprises, and even for our digital freelancers. Our third agenda for this morning is about policies and regulations for a digital economy. And here, in line with policies and regulations to support a digital economy, we would like to highlight several executive orders, such as Executive Order number 127, Series of 2021, expanding the provision of Internet services through inclusive access to satellite services, amending number 467, Series of 1998 for the purpose stated therein, as well as Executive Number 170, Series of 2022, the adoption of digital payments for government disbursements and collections. As you can see, the government's priority is really to move our economy from its current state to a digital economy where we are enabled to use digital platforms in our commercial transactions, where we have the skills, the required skills for our workforce to deliver and to work in digital platforms, among other requirements. And so, let me just also mention that there are a lot of legislative acts that are geared towards creating a digital or supporting a digital economy. First is the E-Commerce Act, or RA 8792, passed in 2000, which aims to facilitate domestic and international dealings, transactions and arrangements, agreements, contracts, and exchanges, and storage of information through the use of electronic, optical, and similar medium mode instrumentality and technology to recognize the authenticity and reliability of electronic data messages or electronic documents related to commercial activities, and to promote the universal use of electronic transactions in the government and by the general public. Another law, which is revolutionary, is the Philippine Innovation Act, or RA 11293, which mandates the creation of the National Innovation Council that will stir the whole government coordination, the whole of government coordination and collaboration to remove the fragmentation in the country. While we are working in silos in the past, today we embrace the whole of government model in order to push forward the country's innovation ecosystem. The Innovative Startup Act, on the other hand, or RA 11337, aims to strengthen, promote, and develop an innovative and entrepreneurial ecosystem and culture in the Philippines. Another law is RA 11659, or an act or the so-called Public Services Act, which allows up to 100% foreign ownership of public services such as telcos in the country. We also have the Philippine Industries Development Act, or 11904, which mandates the creation of a long-term plan for the promotion of the development of creative industries. And of course, close to my heart, because I am part of the framers of this law, is Republic Act 11927, which now pushes the government to ensure that all Filipinos have the digital competence and the digital entrepreneurship skills in order to be at par with global standards insofar as skills and use of platforms, digital platforms are concerned, and also to encourage digital innovation and digital entrepreneurship. And finally, lately is the SIM Registration Act, or RA 11934, which aims to regulate the issuance of SIM cards in order to prevent scams, anomalous practices, and irregularities, which mostly victimize people who are very active in the digital platforms. The Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council, or LEDAC, also has several priority bills which involves the active participation of the DICT. And as you can see, these are some of the bills on screen. The Consolidated E-Governance E-Government Act, or bill, where the DICT is to be the primary implementing body, establishing the integrated government network, establishing the Philippine Public Service Directory, and establishing the government e-portal. In terms of the Internet Transaction Act, there is now the direction to create an e-commerce bureau and to promote equal treatment of online and offline commercial activity. In terms of policy and regulations for a digital economy, we have a lot of discussions here, and I will leave this to our friends at the Department of Trade and Industry. But let me just highlight that the DTI has done very well in the area of promoting e-commerce, which is now becoming viable even down to the countryside. With their program Madali, which is the e-commerce Philippines Roadmap 2022, now consumers can make digital platforms as part of their everyday life and are now really very active in using and leveraging on the benefits of the digital economy. Another issuance that supports the structure of the Philippine digital economy is our IT BPM Roadmap 2020, which is a roadmap where the Philippine IT BPM industry is meant to be a leading industry in the Philippines. It sets the goal in terms of headcount and revenue growth. It also identifies key strategic imperatives that partners and stakeholders must accomplish in order to achieve a lot of goals in order to push our country. Now, our goal is really to achieve 3 million, at least 3 million jobs, double of what we have today in the next 6 years. And the scenario is really very positive insofar as the countryside is concerned, because we want 54% of these jobs to be found in the countryside. Then we have cybersecurity issues, risks, and challenges. While our efforts are directed towards the evolution of the Philippine digital economy, it is imperative that cybersecurity issues, risks, and challenges be also identified, addressed to ensure that we create a robust and safe virtual environment. In an article published in the Manila Bulletin by former DICT Undersecretary Mon Ibrahim, entitled Building Trust in a Digital Economy, he identifies several issues that arise while securing a trustworthy digital economy. These are the robustness of internet infrastructure, such as the resiliency of the nationwide fiber optic cabling, the unverified virtual merchants, influx of fake sellers, unpopular online shopping platforms, and obstacles that may be encountered in building a trustworthy digital ecosystem, like the perceived reliability of digital payment applications. We need to overcome these issues. Cybersecurity risk in the digital economy may include operational risk arising from problems with service or product delivery, reputational risk arising from negative public opinion, compliance risk arising from the violations or non-conformity to laws, rules, and regulations prescribed practices or ethical standards. The largest current challenge are the economic losses that arise from cybersecurity threats that have been identified by the Interpol in 2021 as the top cyber threats in Southeast Asia. These are phishing, where attackers send fraudulent messages, and I leave this to the experts to discuss. You also have business email compromise campaigns, ransomware, e-commerce data interpretation, which attacks allow unauthorized users to attack e-commerce data or to breach e-commerce data. And you have cyber scams, cryptojacking, which is a type of cybercrime that involves unauthorized use of people devices. There are so many challenges around cybersecurity which we need to address, and I hope that this conference will also find time to discuss and to create some recommendations. Then the fifth discussion is on the 3 pillars of action, which are to enhance digital skills training education, accelerate digital adoption and innovation, and to promote digital trade and opportunities. This is taken from the report, The Growing Digital Economy in the Philippines, Opportunities, Challenges, and Google's Contribution, as prepared by Google in 2021. First, it is crucial for the Philippines to enhance digital skills, training, and education. The country must make significant efforts in developing digital talent. And we at the Department of Information and Communications Technology is very much aggressive in this area. It is part of my portfolio, the digital upskilling portfolio. Second is to further accelerate digital adoption and innovation in the country. To achieve full benefits of digital economy, we need to promote an environment that is conducive for innovation and pursue innovative policies that support entrepreneurial activities. Third, it is crucial for the Philippines to continue to promote digital trade opportunities for businesses in the country. The alignment of its trade-related practices with the international community through multilateral trade agreements will facilitate cross-border transactions. There are still ventures that must be undertaken to actualize a digital economy, ideally attuned to the Philippine economic landscape. However, much has already been accomplished in service of this vision. According to a Business Insight article, the Philippine digital economy is poised to achieve 2 years ahead of forecast $20 billion in gross merchandise value this year. While microeconomic headwinds are to cut the potential of gross merchandise value to $35 billion by $35 billion by 2025, which is a number lower than the $40 billion original projection. The Economy Southeast Asia report by Google, Temasek, and Bain and Company showed that the Philippines digital economy will hit $100 billion to $150 billion by 2030. The DICT will be active and will continue to act towards an innovative, safe, and happy and inclusive country that thrives throughout all these digital innovations. And that is enabled by ICT, or information and communication technologies. Thus, we will continue to implement and participate in projects, plans, and programs that catalyze the advantage of digitalization for our economy. This brings my presentation to a close. Once again, thank you very much for the opportunity to address you all this morning, and I wish us all a fruitful exchange of ideas. Maraming salamat.
At maraming salamat din po sa inyo, Undersecretary Sige. Due to an urgent matter, Sige was not able to join us live today, but the presentation indeed was full of helpful information and insights, especially about the commitments, plans, and the direction of the government, particularly the current administration when it comes to ICT. Now, for our attendees, if you have questions about the presentation of Sige, although she is not here live, we can forward your questions directly to the Office of Undersecretary Sige so that your questions will be answered by Sige. Now, friends, we move on to our second speaker for today. We have Ms. Jean Clarisse T. Carlos. Ms. Carlos is the Project Development Officer for handling the Philippine APEC Study Center Network, or PASCN, Network of East Asian Think Tanks Philippines, or NEAT, and East Asian Development Think Tanks, or EADN, Secretariats at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, or PIDS. She's also a senior lecturer at Miriam College. Ms. Carlos obtained her Master in Public Policy from Meiji University, Master in Community Development from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and her Bachelor of Arts in International Studies from Miriam College. Unfortunately, Ms. Carlos is not present with us this morning, but we will be playing a video she has provided for us to discuss her insights on our topic today. Again, our second speaker, Ms. Jean Clarisse D. Carlos.
So thank you, Ms. Diane, for the introduction. So first of all, I would like to thank the Foundation for the National Interest Philippines and its co-organizers for inviting me to talk about mapping women-led micro, small, and medium enterprises in the Philippine digital economy, the policies, trends, and challenges. So it is such an honor to be speaking alongside you, Sec Batapa-Sigue, Keith, and having Mr. Gunther and Chair Alano to open and close the event. This morning, I will be talking about the results of the two studies I co-authored, with the first one focusing on the perception of women-led MSMEs themselves, and the second one from the point of view of key government agencies, women-led business organizations, and the leading e-commerce and fintech platforms. So with the results of the two studies, I would try to map out policies, trends, and challenges of women-led MSMEs in the digital economy. So my presentation will be divided into 4 parts. So first, based on literature, I would be introducing the women-led MSMEs in the digital economy. The second I would highlight the perceptions of the women-led MSMEs in the digital economy and the role of the government. Third, I will highlight the responses of the key government agencies, women-led business organizations, and leading digital platforms on the policy environment. And lastly, I would mention some conclusions and recommendations. To start, MSMEs, particularly in the Philippines, are perceived as drivers of socio-economic activity, stability, due to their capacity to create jobs, cultivate innovation, and foster a competitive business environment. So MSMEs have a major role in sustaining the country's economic growth. So according to ADB, women own 50% of the micro enterprises and 59% of the small and medium-sized enterprises in East Asia and the Pacific. And the opportunities are bountiful since the internet improves access to information, mobile technology enables new payment channels, and ICT-enabled solutions address time and mobility constraints. So moreover, the emergence of e-commerce presents new business opportunities such as greater participation in domestic and international trade. So Clarisse and Daniel discussed that more than half of the businesses in the Philippines in 2017 were women-led. However, women have not fully benefited from the growth of MSME sector. So ADB identified critical issues faced by women entrepreneurs to start, sustain, and scale up. So first is women-led enterprises are still few. Therefore, public policies and programs have not explicitly promoted or targeted support for them. And second is women MSMEs are likely to encounter multiple barriers such as equal loss, inability to meet collateral requirements due to their lack of property ownership, harassment at public offices, and insufficient business knowledge and capacity, and financial literacy. So pertaining to digital economy, immediate benefits of digitalization may vary among sectors and enterprises. So the adoption of digital solutions can help MSMEs in areas such as managing transactions at a distance, delivering goods efficiently, facilitating access to financial services, engaging with new and existing customers. So with regard to e-commerce, it does not always translate into actual gains for women entrepreneurs despite advances in ICT and digital technology. So evidence suggests that the lack of literacy, skills, resources mainly hinder women entrepreneurs from capitalizing on e-commerce adoption and its potential as an engine for internationalization. So in fact, to date, there is a limited research that has addressed women's participation or success on e-commerce platforms. So in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic, however, promoting the digitalization of MSMEs can help address several economic challenges posed by the crisis. But the process of adopting new digital approaches to selling does not come without risk. So despite the clear benefits, it is crucial to recognize the complex challenges that this digitalization presents, including cybersecurity and data privacy concerns, exposure to digital fraud, online misinformation, symmetric market power and platform dominance, and persistent divide and infrastructure-related issues. So lastly, the pandemic has shown spotlight on the potential and the limitations of the digital economy, where successes in businesses increasingly depend upon leveraging on online sales. But technological advances do not always decode into advances in equality for women who persistently lag behind men when it comes to access and use of digital marketplaces. So moving forward, the results which will be discussed on the next two slides are perceptions of approximately 500 women-led MSMEs in Metro Manila. On the study I co-authored, which was published by the PIDS earlier this year, entitled E-commerce Adoption and Its Impact on the Performance of Women-led MSMEs in Metro Manila, an ex-ante study for RCEP found out that the biggest gain in adopting in e-commerce were growing business and product popularity, more profit, and easier communication with clients. So, but the most cited issues were the fake accounts and bogus buyer, copying and using their advertising materials, price scraping of the competitors, and copying of their personal data information. On pertaining on cybersecurity, so 74% of the respondents feel secured in engaging in digital transactions such as using e-commerce platforms, online banking, and other transactions online. Perceptions of safety and security are important considerations for e-commerce adoption, especially since this has been identified as a barrier for women MSMEs digitalization. So to add, they also cited that they never experienced gender-related issues in transactions such as gender-based harassment and discrimination and cyberbullying. However, some respondents who experience gender-based harassment while engaging in e-commerce are in the likes of unwanted sexual attentions through messages, commenting on their posts, and during client meetups, and mostly they face gender stereotyping among others. So on the impacts of e-commerce adoption, so the study measured their satisfaction level based on their sales growth, customer satisfaction, customer base, and process enhancement. So the overall perceptions on the impacts of e-commerce adoption by the women MSMEs are satisfied and very satisfied. So elaborating on this point, so under sales growth, the respondents were satisfied with the size of their transactions, frequency of their transactions per customer, and current prices of their products. So under customer base, they were satisfied with their growth, expansion by age, gender, income group, and geographical reach. So under customer satisfaction, they were very satisfied with their customer satisfaction, like feedback forms, volume of good reviews, and referrals. So under process enhancement, they were very satisfied with their work processes and operations and turnaround time, and human resources, particularly in the delivery period of their products to their customers. So moving on to their general perceptions of the role of government in their businesses. So the result shows this result shows that women MSMEs lack awareness on any government program. So majority of women-led MSMEs are not familiar and do not think the government communicates its program to their business, to them. Furthermore, below, here is the results on the more specific question. So 91.15% answered that they do not know any government programs which help businesses with e-commerce adoption. 96.1% answered that they do not know any government programs to support women-led MSMEs and their expansion. 96.1% answered that they they are not aware of any steps of government to simplify or automate customs procedures. 51% answered they are not aware of any government programs targeted to women MSMEs to help them access global digital economy, while 96.3% answered that they are not familiar on any government programs per se. So hence, on the following slides, I will discussing the point of view of the key government agencies and other actors pertaining to programs and policies. This is to supplement the perceptions of the women-led MSMEs themselves. So on this slide, I will focus on the results of the follow-up study to be published by the PIDS by the end of the year, entitled Analysis of Cross-Border E-Commerce Environment for Philippine Women-Led MSMEs, the Challenges and Opportunities. So the study collected data through key informant interviews and web scraping of key government agencies, women-led business organizations, and leading digital economy platforms. So the results were divided into 8 parts, but due to the interest of time, I will only focus on 3. So on the data on women and e-commerce, in relation to the collection and the storage of sex disaggregated data. Most of the sex disaggregated data being collected by the key government agencies are very internal in nature. So as this is as prompted by the GAD mainstreaming requirement across all government agencies. So on the other hand, some collect external sex disaggregated data. For instance, the DTI collects robust information from their stakeholders, while DICT gathers data on women access to internet, use of ICT services, cyber safety awareness, and upskilling trainings. Furthermore, business groups such as Women Biz PH and PBCWE also collect and store sex disaggregated data to produce reports. In terms of e-commerce platforms, such Carousel have a re-commerce index report. So on the data processing, the DTI collects and consolidates data into annual gender development report, accomplishment report, while the BSP processes the data and publishes financial inclusion reports. The PCW has a study on impact of COVID-19, while the PTTC processes data to be used as inputs in training needs assessment reports and training design. And the process data is also used in sex disaggregated data reports requested by PCW on a quarterly basis. So furthermore, the other government agency focus only, as I said, on their GAD internal projects for their staff. Next is on digital literacy and e-payments and e-commerce and digital trade solutions. So in the entirety of the policy environment here, like it's really very rich. So I will just mention several. So if you would be needing the more comprehensive list, you may pertain to the link I will be posting by the end of my presentation. So on the program targeted to women MSMEs to help them access the global digital economy, so DTI has several programs for the women-led MSMEs and global digital economy, such as ETAAS stands for Empowering Local MSMEs and Women Entrepreneurs, Train for Success, Control Biz, Reboot Now, ASEAN SME Academy, MSME Tech Tools, Wanna Make a Mark, She Trades Philippines Hub. So further, the DICT implements the following GAD initiatives to support ICT infrastructure that would enable women to participate in digital global economy, such as Tech for Ed, Free Wi-Fi project programs, National Government Portal, GovNet, Electronic Business Permit and Licensing System, National Broadband Plan. The DOF and BIR are also set to roll out the implementation of e-invoicing in line with the train. BSP then promotes the use of digital payments channels and among others. So with regard to the private sector, so the Women Biz PH has similarly launched several initiatives such as Bayanihan, Resellers Virtual Trade Expo, Women Connect, among others, for the leading digital economy platforms. such as Shopee, Lazada, Zalora, eBay, Carousel, and Gcash, they have their respective programs, but the gap is they don't have any programs specifically focus on women. So on the available online information about internet banking and e-payment option, there is a very vibrant fintech environment in the Philippines, and the reception of the BSP's efforts to the industry and other key government agencies is very good. So this is with high regard. So furthermore, in the capacity building side, there is a very PTTC provides information on the online banking and e-payment, and also provides information on fintech and cryptocurrency. So for business organizations, so Women Biz PH is implementing the fintech for her as part of the Negosyo ni Madam program. Shopee, Lazada, and Carousel, and other leading digital economy platforms have several initiatives as well. So on public-private partnership, the DTI has partnerships with Women Biz PH and other leading e-commerce platforms, and BSP has like very vibrant partnership with fintech actors. So on the Philippine government infrastructure and policy support, some initiatives were already mentioned, but generally the DTI, DICT, BSP lead the implementation of this program. So lastly, on the online security, online safety and security, so there is a highlight in terms of gender-based discrimination in e-commerce platforms. The Safe Spaces Act addresses the issues encountered by women. So the law acknowledges that gender-based discrimination and violence can happen in any public space, which includes online. So given this very brief overview of several initiatives, we could see like the policy environment is very vibrant. But why are the perception of women MSMEs like that? So we could find out on the next slide. So to wrap up my discussion, so I will focus on 5 key areas. The first one is in the coordination side. So the data show that vibrant partnerships are already existing between and among government agencies, leading e-commerce platforms, women and business-centered associations, and fintech and other digital platforms. So these partnerships may be more effective by the institutionalization of a board that convenes quarterly and serve as a platform for information dissemination, dialogue, and collaboration. This board will play a paramount role in formulating strategies and plan of actions, resolving issues, and responding to the persistent and novel threats in the digital economy. The next one is on access. So access is the primary challenge faced by women MSMEs on digital economy. More specifically, women-led businesses have difficulties in connecting to the internet, securing loans, funding for operating costs and future expansion, processing information and procedures on digital trade, and participating in government-led programs, among others. So this is despite of the continuous and comprehensive efforts made by various stakeholders, as I mentioned earlier. So on capacity building, education and skills are perceived as the key factors in capacitating women-led MSMEs to effectively sustain their businesses and participate in digital economy. Notably, the PTTC facilitates capacity building programs for every stage of the MSMEs. Nevertheless, there are no particular activities for women-led businesses themselves. PTTC may therefore consider the development of more gender-specific trainings to address the unique needs and demands of women. So on scaling up and sustainability, there is a need to acknowledge that financing, infrastructure, implementation of programs, and other assistance are necessary for women-led MSME to sustain and scale up their operations. Thus, mainstreaming access to these services and programs enhance coordination among stakeholders may be significant for women MSMEs to engage in digital economy. Lastly, on equity, gender-specific issues persist despite policies and programs supporting Philippine MSMEs. Most of their programs are not gender specific, but there is a need to acknowledge that men and women face unique challenges. Hence, a one-size-fits-all programs does not always yield positive results. The collection of sex disaggregated data must therefore be strengthened to effectively develop targeted programs benefiting women MSMEs to engage in digital economy. So that's all for my presentation. So thank you so much, everyone, for your attention. So also, if you are interested to access the publications pertaining to the first study, you may click on the links above. For the second study, please check the PIDS website by the end of December for the posting. So in case you have further questions related to my presentation, since I am not present currently, please feel free to email me at jcarlos@pids.gov.ph, or you may reach out to the organizer. So thank you so much again, and I hope you will all have a great day.
And thank you very much as well to you, Ms. Jean, Clarisse, Carlos. Thank you for that insightful presentation, especially on how we women can scale up these women-led MSMEs. Again, the links for the publications of Ms. Carlos are posted already. The links are already there in the chat box. If you are interested to read the publications of our speaker. And again, as mentioned by Ms. Carlos, if you have questions about her presentation, please type in your questions via the chat box, and we can forward directly your questions to Ms. Carlos. Now, friends, we are now down to our third speaker. For today, we have Mr. Keith Detros. Mr. Detros is the program lead at the Tech for Good Institute. He leverages almost a decade of experience in government affairs, evidence-based policy research, and stakeholder engagement to work on areas at the nexus of technology and public policy. He previously served as the digital economy specialist at the U.S. Department of State's Embassy in Manila, where he covered entrepreneurship, innovation, technology policy, and cybersecurity. Earlier in his career, he was a research specialist at the Philippine Institute of Development Studies. Mr. Detros holds a Master in International Affairs degree from National University of Singapore's Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, and a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science degree from the University of the Philippines, Manila. Please give your virtual applause joining us live today, our third speaker, Mr. Keith Detros.
Hi, thank you so much, Diane. Let me just share my screen. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. There we go. I hope you can see it. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at the EconSecurity Talks, Accelerating the Digital Economy in the Philippines. My name is Keith Detros, and I'm the program lead for the Tech for Good Institute. I'll take this opportunity as well to introduce the Tech for Good Institute. We are a nonprofit organization founded by Grab, and we are based out of Singapore with a mission to leverage the promise of technology to advance inclusive, equitable, and sustainable growth in Southeast Asia. We are a new organization. We are just 1 year old, still young, and our work focuses on the topics at the intersection of technology, society, and economy, all of which have been recognized as intrinsic for development. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, the Foundation of National Interests, FES Philippines, the Amador Research Services, and FACS Asia for putting together this event to discuss the very important issue of digital economy in the Philippines. I would also like to acknowledge Mirko Gunther, as well as Vice Admiral Alano, who are joining us today. So the main question we try to unpack for this event is how can Philippines realize the potential of digital technologies for economic growth and national development? And for this, I have actually 3 points that would contribute to the discussion today. And it's geared towards the main essence is building a confident digital society for the Philippines. The first we need is on digital literacy. The second is on financial literacy. And the third is on the importance of cybersecurity and resilience, both of which have been touched upon by our 2 previous speakers. But before we go into those points, I would like to set the stage first. On a regional scale, it's undeniable that Southeast Asia has massive opportunities in the digital economy. Our times today have been dubbed as the digital decade. As catalyzed by the pandemic, more people have gone online, and adoption has rapidly accelerated when COVID-19 hit. Currently, there are around 440 million internet users in the region, with around 20 million coming online last year. And this is basically buoyed by our shift to the e-commerce, the e-payments, our use of computers, technology in education, and the use of digital services. The internet economy is estimated to be at 200 billion by the end of 2022 in the whole region, reaching the mark 3 years earlier than expected. So we are growing at a rapid rate. And by 2030, the region is still on pace to reach 1 trillion by 2030. But where does the Philippines lie, or where does the Philippines stand in all of this? As mentioned by DICT the Philippine Statistics Authority estimates that the Philippines is already contributing around $32 billion. This is even more than the Google estimates as of 2021. This is an increase from the previous year of 2020 by 7.8%. And the overall digital economy in the Philippines is around 10% of our GDP. In addition, the Philippine digital economy shows much potential as well as significant economic prize if you can accelerate, foster, and sustain this growth until we reach the ambition 2040 ideals or vision that we have in the Philippines. The latest Google Temasek and Bain report noted that the GMV, or the gross merchandise value of the internet economy, could reach between 100 to 150 billion by 2030 in the country. And there is reason to believe that this growth can be achieved on the backs of several key drivers. The first is on the demographic dividend of the Philippines. With a young population, our population's median age is around 25.7 years old, and this is lower than the global value of around 30 years old. There is considerable potential for expansion of the Philippine digital sector. As of January 2021, the Filipinos aged 16 to 64 spent the highest average amount of time using the internet, and the number of buyers or consumers in the digital economy in the Philippines is expected to grow around 16.7% annually from 2017 to 2022. And as you know, we are the social media capital of the Philippines. I think it was a digital report that we use social media, or we are on the internet the longest or the most globally. And if nurtured right, the young population, if we give them with the right skills and the competencies, they can also make up the talent base for the growth or the fuel that will drive us forward. Second is the role of the middle class. So as the middle class also continues to grow, they will have increased spending power that will drive the digital economy. This can be through our food delivery services, as well as the e-commerce industries and the use of digital financial services. And finally, as a rapid digitalization brought about by the pandemic, transition to digitalization is perceived to be a sticky foundational technology. This means that once we are introduced to technologies, or digital consumers are using these technologies, they're more likely to keep using those technologies in the future. In the recent economy report 2022, for example, approximately 70% of the digital consumers indicated that they would either use digital technologies more or in the same amount or same manner as they are currently in the next 12 months. So with all these, there is reason to be optimistic about the Philippine digital economy growth. But despite the massive opportunities, however, there remains challenges to the Philippine digital economy. As a barometer, we can look at some of the global databases that benchmark the Philippines globally and in the region. In the latest Network Readiness Index, actually released just last month, for example, the Philippines lags behind the Southeast Asian neighbors in overall ranking. The Network Readiness Index gauges the performance in the application and impact of ICT in 131 economies across the pillars of technology, governance, people, and impact. For this year, the Philippines ranks middle of the pack, at 71 out of 131 countries. We are strong relatively in the presence of e-commerce legislation as well as ICT exports. In fact, our ICT exports make up the bulk of the digital economy contribution in the country. To improve our score and overall readiness, there are needed improvements in the quality of education and the expenditure of research and development, as well as in bridging the digital divide, especially in the use of digital payments in rural areas of the Philippines. In another measure, we rank 56th out of the 63 countries in the Global Digital Competitiveness Index. The index measures knowledge, technology, as well as future readiness. While there are areas for improvement, the current ranking is actually an improvement. It's a 2-notch up from the last version of the report, which is a welcome development. In this manner, it would be also interesting to see who is in the same postal code of our digital journey. So who is around, or what countries are within the same level of digital competitiveness as we are. Currently, we are on the same digital journey as the Peru, Mexico, Turkey, and South Africa. But again, as DICT already noted, we are making some inroads as well as efforts and initiatives to be able to improve digital economy in the Philippines, as well as fulfill the vision of being a digitally empowered nation. As my fellow speakers pointed out, there are definitely efforts already in place to foster an enabling environment for the digital economy. But I would like to put forward another point, which is the need to build a confident digital society. Because it is one thing to give access of the internet to onboard people, especially rural areas in the digital economy, but it is also another thing to allow them to thrive. It is not merely being able to give out cell phones or allow access, but more importantly as well, to be able to allow the people that are online or the digital consumers to use it meaningfully and impact their lives as well. This is not merely just around increasing the access now, but the deepening of the engagement in the digital economy is needed. What this means is that we need to equip the Filipinos with the right tools, skills, and mindset to use digital technologies, and to ensure that the users know what they are doing when they are online. This is where I want to pivot on the key points I wanted to highlight. The first thing to build a confident digital society is the need for digital literacy. As PIDS pointed out, there's a limited digital literacy skills among the Filipinos. Only around 40% have at least one of the 6 ICT skills that are monitored by the SDGs, meaning around 60% does not have the necessary know-how on using technology. And if we want to leverage the promise of technology, we need to improve this so that they can contribute to the growing digitalization and digital transformation in the society. Second, digital literacy, or in addition to this, digital literacy appears to be lowest among the young, which is around 10 to 14 years old, as well as the elderly, around the 65 and above in the Philippines. And in ASEAN, the Philippine lags in nearly ICT skills endorsed by the ITU. But why is this needed? We can look at the digital financial inclusion and the digital financial services as an example. In Tech for Good Institute's report on digital financial inclusion, one of the most consistent predictors of the use of e-wallet and non-e-wallet in all 6 countries, because we had this report studying the Southeast Asian 6, which is Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam. The need for digital literacy is crucial so that there is a minimum level of familiarity and on the use of digital technology in order to use digital financial services. For the unbanked and the underbanked individuals in the Philippines who are excluded from the formal economy, basic digital literacy skills are crucial for them to access and use services, financial services on their mobile devices. Digital literacy also allows for people to meaningfully take part in the digital economy and take advantage of the opportunities brought about by the advances the digital progress in the society. Second is on the need for financial literacy. As we noted, e-commerce is the driver of the digital economy growth in the Philippines. The use of DFS exponentially increased during the pandemic. For example, GCash reported that it's grown its consumer base by around 66 million in September 2022, and other e-payment providers have also noted exponential increase due to the pandemic. But to thrive on the use of digital technologies and digital financial services is just beyond e-payments. Currently, the use of DFS is still dominated by e-payments, as you can see from the report from the Economy Report 2022. But digital financial services is more than just being able to pay for your delivery or your orders. There are also other segments of the sector that we can take advantage of. This includes lending, remittance, insurance, as well as investments. And these sectors can unlock economic opportunity and deepen the engagement of the digital consumers. To move beyond payments, the TFGI research noted that the need for financial literacy is another crucial thing. Non-e-wallet products like insurance, investments, and loans are more complex. And research on financial literacy and trust in financial services suggests that those with higher levels of financial literacy and financial knowledge are more likely to be able to use and understand other segments of the digital financial sector. And finally, as both of my fellow speakers have already pointed out, there's a need for cybersecurity. As we build a confident digital society, we have to how do we keep the users safe as well? Cyber resilience is vital in this aspect. In some cases, digital adoption has raced ahead of digital literacy and cyber hygiene. But as Mikko Hipponen, a Finnish global cybersecurity expert, said, if it's smart, it's vulnerable. In the Philippines, for example, there was an increase in cyber threats at the onset of the pandemic. In some estimates, private firms saw an increase of 30% in ransomware attacks and 49% in web threats. The Philippine National Police, for example, also reported a 37% increase in online scam cases, while the NBI noted that at the start of the pandemic, there was a 200% increase in phishing cases. This challenge will not go away as the country's digital economy grows and more people integrate online technologies into their daily activities. It is key that we couple our digitalization efforts with cyber awareness. We cannot have build it now and fix it later approach. We cannot onboard a lot of people without letting them know about what are the risks and challenges they may face as they use digital technologies. Instead, we must take steps to build the ship as we sail. The digital economy can only grow if we foster confidence and trust in the ecosystem among the digital consumers. At the end of the day, a safe, secure, and resilient cyberspace is a foundation of a confident digital society, which in turn encourages digital economic activity as well as continued innovation in the sector. An upcoming research by the Tech for Good Institute as well maps out the state of digital resilience. A preview is, as you can see on the screen. The research would tackle the digital resilience of Southeast Asian nations, and the Philippines is in the middle of the pack owing to its existing laws and regulations relating to cybersecurity. This includes the Data Privacy Act as well as the Cybercrime Act, but there are still areas where we need to improve adaptation measures, including developing the cyber workforce as well as investments in research and development in cybersecurity. I would like to end by highlighting that as a market, the Philippines holds so much promise and potential in the digital economy. And while we work to enable its growth, it is equally key that we collectively shape it. The areas I've mentioned around the need to look into digital literacy, financial literacy, as well as cyber resiliency are just some key points to enable the confident digital society. This takes a whole of government approach, as noted by Jocelle, but I would also want to point out that it also needs a whole of society approach. There are many stakeholders in the ecosystem, including the academics, the digital startups, the entrepreneurs, the policymakers, the youths that can further this agenda. We hope to achieve a digital economic growth that is inclusive, equitable, and resilient, and building a confident digital society is one part of this. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you again for the invitation to share my insights on this, and I look forward to the discussions. Thank you, Diane.
And thank you as well to you, Mr. Detros. And once again, thank you to all our speakers this morning who shared their insights, expertise. And now at this point, we will be moving to the open forum. So for all our online attendees, if you have questions, particularly, of course, to Mr. Detros, who is joining us live here, kindly type in now your questions so that your questions will be answered during our open forum. So our participants already had, prepared questions while they read during the registration, and some of the questions are actually addressed to all the speakers. So since you are here live, Mr. Keith Detros, I would like to, throw also this question to you, and we would like to know your insights about these concerns of our online attendees. So first up, for our open forum, what do you think, Mr. Detros, will be the concrete steps that the Philippine government should prioritize to improve its digital infrastructure? So we'd like to know your insights about that, sir.
Sure. It would have been lovely as well to get some policy updates from the ICT and the other speakers, but I'll try to answer this in 3 key points. One, digital infrastructure is not just the satellites or just the towers that we see. The full of the digital infrastructure is the entirety of the data ecosystem that we are operating in. So one of the things that would be key in the data ecosystem and part of the digital infrastructure is our digital identities, because that will enable us to transact as well as foster trust among each other and give us the confidence to be able to participate in the digital economy. So one is on fast-tracking our implementation of the national ID system that can be integrated into the digital economic activities that we have. Second is on improving our access, speed, as well as affordability of the internet infrastructure in the country. There are several laws already in place or already being deliberated in Congress, as what has EconSecurity or Jocelle has noted. One of which is the Public Services Act, as well as there's another one on the Open Transmission Act, Open Access Act, which also would liberalize as well as free up or lower down the market entry for more players in providing internet, especially in the rural areas. And the third one that I would also like to emphasize is the need for a cybersecurity law. Usually there are 3 pillars when enabling or when ensuring that the digital economy is secure. First one is the Data Privacy Act, which we already have since 2012. Second one is the Cybercrime Act, which is we also have already in since 2012. And the third one that we still lack, and we have heard discussions on this, is on the cybersecurity law. The cybersecurity law would put out minimum standards on cybersecurity policies across businesses, governments, so that they have a baseline of where they should start, as well as the minimum requirements that would enable them to safeguard the data of Filipinos as well as their consumers. So, yep, again, I think it's on building our national data system for national ID system for data registries of digital economy players. Second is on improving our affordability, speed, and access. I know the National Broadband Plan is already in place as well. And third is on a cybersecurity law that would set minimum standards for the digital economy.
Thank you. Very good points raised by Mr. Detros. Now, this is the second question from one of our attendees. Well, you mentioned that Filipinos have low digital literacy for ages 10 to 14 and 65 above. Do you think digital and financial literacy should be included in the curriculum for junior high school and onwards? What do you think, sir?
Yeah, I think so too. Actually, not only digital literacy as well as financial literacy, the cybersecurity aspect and cyber hygiene as well should be already folded in as early as the elementary level. As you know, of course, cyber hygiene, the digital literacy and cyber hygiene should be on the earlier stages of education, while financial literacy would be more complex. So it needs to be at the higher level, junior high and senior high, as you mentioned. But I would like to focus on the digital literacy as well as the cybersecurity aspects. In Southeast Asia, I think two countries have institutionalized it. It's Malaysia and Singapore that have a cyber hygiene as well as cybersecurity, cyber hygiene and digital literacy competencies included in as early as their elementary level. The rise of education technologies, and when COVID-19 hit, we gave out tablets and e-learning modules to our students. I think it would be just key that at the very early stage, we should also give them the right skills and the right tools to be able to protect themselves from the threats. The idea of giving cell phones to kids, as well as the rise or the increase in education using digital technologies via Zoom, it's crucial to be able to also ensure that there's a safe environment for them to learn. Last thing I would like to point out is that one aspect as well that I think we should also focus on is on improving DQ. So we've heard of IQ, which is intelligence quotient. We heard of EQ, which is the emotional quotient or our emotional intelligence. But there's also a concept such as the DQ, which is our digital quotient or our digital intelligence. I think DQ is also an important or integral part as we move people forward or move people towards the digital economy and using digital technologies. It's ensuring that they know what they're doing, they're safe, as well as they would use it in an ethically manner as well as a responsible manner as well. IQ, EQ, DQ.
New vocabulary added today. We have DQ, digital quotient or digital intelligence. Thank you for that, Sir Keith. Now, one last question for our open forum. Philippine digital economy is only 10% of the GDP. What is your forecast, Sir Keith? Can this increase realistically in the next 5 years? What do you think?
Yeah, so if I knew the future, I've been one of my professors always told me that it's tough to make the predictions, especially because it's about the future, something like that. And we have reason to believe about the optimism and in the digital economy space. As I pointed out, we have a young population, around 25 years old. We have to also take into consideration the digital adoption and the rising adoption to be able to reach that 100 billion value by 2030. But there are macroeconomic headwinds that are going to be some challenges that to temper these expectations a little bit. One is the rise of the continuing inflation will have some chilling effect on the spending for sure. And another one is supply chain issues that would also have effects on the availability of products and services. So there's reason to believe that we are able to do that. But if we address our digital infrastructure, then we can. But at the same time, we need to ensure that it's equitable across the board, even in the rural areas, equitable and inclusive. And finally, I think it was pointed out by the DICT as well that we need to make this economic growth as well sustainable. So meaning the digital economy or technologies should be used so that we are able to also achieve or realize our green goals. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your insights today, and thank you for answering the questions. Again, we had Mr. Keith Detros, and also we would like to thank our two other speakers, Ms. Jean Clarisse Di Carlos and Undersecretary Jocelle E. Batapa-Sigue. Again, maraming salamat po sa inyo. Marami po kaming natutunan ngayong umagang ito. Thank you very much. And now, friends, to formally end this forum, may I call on now Vice Admiral Jose Luis Alano, the Chairman of the Board of the Foundation for the National Interest. Sir, you have the floor now. Thank you.
A wonderful morning to everyone. As the holiday season is just around the corner, ascertained by the building traffic around Metro Manila, wishing everyone advance happy holidays. First, I would like to thank all participants and speakers for attending today's final installment of the EconSecurity Talks. Our fruitful discussions from all 4 webinars have led us to realize that there are various factors and considerations needed to improve our economic security. On one hand, we need to consider and deal with various and sometimes conflicting or overlapping laws, international and regional cooperation, geopolitical aspects. On the other hand, we should take into account the integration of technology, conservation of the environment, and the dignity of our fellow citizens. As such, I hope that we all ponder on what this can bring to our country and future. Before we formally close, allow me to recap what we have discussed thus far. In the first EconSecurity Talks, we discussed economic security as a pillar of Philippine foreign policy. In an ever-changing world, we learned that the Philippines must deal with external, domestic, and non-traditional challenges. While securing its economy and trade, we must, along with other countries, work together in addressing the global challenges that we are currently facing for the past 3 years in a sustainable method. Economic security is not merely about growth, but it is also about ecological security and social security. Our Philippine economic foreign policy can be framed into 3 C's: constantly and consistently an instrument to pursue national interests, changing according to context and challenges, and complex in a multidimensional environment. We can keep in mind that our economic foreign policy's ultimate goal is to provide an inclusive economic security to every Filipino citizen through investments, infrastructure, trade, job opportunities, and consumption in order to reach a higher middle income ladder. The Philippines can and must integrate itself into the world economy through enhancing its relationship with its traditional and non-traditional partners, investing in human resource development, and pursuing the possibility of being an innovation hub, a center for training and education, a haven for research and development. The second installment examined the positive and negative implications of the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, of China in the Philippines and Southeast Asia, with programs of government such as the Build, Build, Build tapping into the BRI. It has provided significant changes, which leads us to keep in mind that this global program with its 5 connectivities must be aligned in securing the Philippines economy, while at the same time looking after its environmental security in order to maintain sustainability. Although It is unavoidable to view such projects as geopolitical and hegemonic tools due to the situation in the West Philippine Seas, among others. Safeguards can be put in place with policies that the Philippines has a leverage on, such as the Green Silk Road, wherein China must provide transparency on BIR projects as well as projects that must be able to utilize our local goods and labor and create a favorable social cultural relations to gain a better perspective from the Filipino people. Our third webinar explored achieving economic security through the blue economy, where we exchange innovative ideas and policy recommendations to harness the Philippines' potential as an archipelagic state to grow its ocean economy while adapting inclusive and sustainable development concepts. Despite political concerns rooting in the waters, the blue economy of the Philippines is possible through community involvement, public-private partnership, and bilateral or regional cooperations. As we promote the utilization of our seas to develop our economy, an integration of environmental policies must be included, such as the Extended Producer's Responsibility Law in creating a framework for a blue economy. After all, the benefits we gain from the ocean would be lost if we do not provide the conservation and protection it needs. The exponential growth of the digital economy in the last 2 decades has proven that technology has advanced faster than ever, further boosted by the COVID-19 pandemic. That is, from consumption of social networking, e-commerce, financial services, to healthcare and education, among others. Truly, the Philippines can benefit in supporting the digitization of our economy, which we discuss in today's webinar. However, we must acknowledge the adverse consequence of this progress. Misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation are rampant in the internet. That is further made worse through cybercrimes such as fraudulent online transactions and malicious use of personal data, to name a few. Online human rights must be valued as much as in real life. Without proper cybercrime laws and relevant laws available to protect us, our digital economy can only reach a certain point of advancement, which may eventually cause harm. It is timely that we hold the discussions as the new administration reviews and layouts its security and economic medium-term development policies and plans. I would like to thank all speakers and resource persons who shared their expertise with us this year. DFA Assistant Secretary Eric Gerardo Tamayo, DTI Assistant Secretary Alan Gepti, Dr. Alvin Kamba, Dr. Aaron J. Rabena, Ms. Irene Chan, Dr. Maria Angela Zafra, Dr. Michael Wong, Dr. Ben Milligan, and today's speaker, DICT USEC Jocelle Batapa-Sigue, Ms. Jean Clarisse Carlos, and Mr. Kit Detros. Many thanks as well go to our moderators, Dr. Aris Arugay, Ms. Alagay Andrada, and Ms. Diane Carrere. We thank and congratulate the Foundation for National Interest and our partner organization, Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, or FES Philippines, led by Dr. Vincent Husel, for organizing the dialogue series on economic security, and notably to Mirko Gunter, Head of Asia Pacific Department, FES, for the opening remarks. We give special thanks to Fax Asia and Amador Research Services for all their administrative efforts in making the webinar series happen. And of course, to you, the participants, for making this 4 webinar series possible. As we can see through the webinar series, there is great interest for new ideas in our economic governance. These dialogues are of great value to further harness the various potentials for the Philippines' economic growth through sustainable means. We hope and look forward that these ideas and recommendations would see fruition as enhancement of economic security policies and practices. As former Secretary General of the United Nations Ban Ki-moon said, sustainable development is the pathway for the future we want for all. It offers a framework to generate economic growth, achieve social justice, exercise environmental stewardship, and strengthen governance. Maraming salamat at mabuhay tayong lahat.
At maraming salamat din po at mabuhay po kayo, Vice Admiral Jose Luis Alano. Thank you very much. And friends, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up the very timely and relevant discussion on accelerating the digital economy in the Philippines, policies, trends, and challenges. And at this point, we extend again our gratitude to all of you who joined us today. We hope to see you again in our future forum, webinar, and other similar activities. And kindly like and follow our official Facebook accounts for more updates. Now, may we ask for a few minutes of your time to please do answer the post-event survey in the attached link in the chat box or scan the QR code. And those who require a certificate of attendance, please be informed that you would need to accomplish this evaluation survey. Once again, this is Diane Kerr signing off at maraming salamat po sa inyo.